Hello everybody, so today I am bringing you my Eater of Worlds Expert and Normal Mode Boss Fight Guide, and as with the others in this series, this is a detailed guide to the boss including preparation, gear, and strategies that are suitable for Expert, but applicable for Normal as well. It's in Normal Mode just a little less necessary to do every single thing. I will explain wherever there are differences between Normal and Expert or between game versions. So I'm going to describe the boss, how to spawn it, info and strategies. I will talk about armor, weapons, preparation, including accessories and buffs, as well as an arena. I will do the fight itself. I'll show you the actual fight, and I'll cover the drops that you will get from this boss at the end. And this time around, I am planning to include timestamps for each section in the video description because we got a lot to cover. So let's start with the Eater of Worlds description. It is a giant worm with 50 segments. It only spawns in worlds that have a corruption biome. It is possible to create an artificial one, but that's another story. Killing segments of the worm can split it up into multiple smaller worms. To survive independently, each must have at least 2 parts. So if you have a 3-part long piece of a worm left and you kill the one in the middle, it will die. But each segment counts as an enemy. Each independent little segment or worm counts as an enemy as far as loot drops, which means during the Christmas and Halloween seasonal events, it's useful for farming presents and goodie bags. Also, certain biome-specific, anything that is based on number of enemies killed, it actually can be useful to farm those as long as it's the appropriate biome, the corruption, of course. So as far as spawning, it will only spawn in the corruption, and it will despawn if you're outside the corruption or the crimson. If you actually have both in your world, you can spawn it in the corruption. If the crimson's close enough, you can get it over there if you can lure it. But basically, it will only spawn in the corruption itself, and only in the evil areas it will continue to be there and fight you. So it normally spawns after breaking the 3rd shadow orb in the corruption, which you'll find generally underground in the corruption, and every 3rd orb after that. So basically, you break the first 3, it'll spawn the first time. Break another 3, it'll spawn again. It can also be summoned manually using the worm food boss summoning item, which is crafted from 15 rotten chunks, which you get from corruption enemies, and 30 vile powder at a demon or crimson altar. Vile powder is crafted from vile mushrooms at a potions station, as in a bottle placed on a desk or an alchemy station, or vile powder can be bought from the Dryad NPC during the blood moon. These guys really want to kill me, am I right? All right, so talking about the fight itself, the Eater of Worlds is immune to fire and lava. It's also immune to poisoned, venomed, confused, shadow flame, and cursed inferno debuffs. Some of those you wouldn't normally get until hard mode anyway, but the head of the Eater and each of its independent worms, if it gets split up, does the most damage, but has the least life and defense. The body is kind of in the middle, and the tail is kind of the opposite. It actually does the least damage, and but has the highest life and defense. So which segment you're attacking does kind of matter for your strategy. In expert mode, the damage it inflicts is nearly doubled, especially the head is more than doubled. And the life and defense are boosted significantly. It's different stats according to which segment, and how much it's boosted is different according to which segment. Also in expert mode, it shoots vile spit, and I'm going to do this in expert mode, of course, so you'll see that. It has the vile spit has a 1 in 20 chance to inflict the weak debuff for 10 minutes, so that's not something you want. And also, of course, the vile spit does damage directly as well. The weak debuff lowers your defense by 4, slows you down by 10%, and it also reduces your melee damage and speed. In expert mode, the Eater of Worlds also takes 80% less damage from most explosives. Apparently bouncy bombs may be an exception, although you might be taking your life in your hand throwing bouncy bombs around. But yeah, explosives might be great in normal, probably won't work as well in expert. On PC, and probably maybe others after further updates come. So far, the other updated platforms don't have the Old One's Army event yet. So currently it's on PC only, that once you defeat the Eater of Worlds, it will allow the Tavern Keep NPC to spawn, and you'll find him laying on the ground somewhere. after you've defeated the Eater or the Brain of Cthulhu, but that's another story we'll cover in another episode. So strategies. The Eater worlds actually spawns coiled up. It's kind of curled up when it first spawns. If you can, it then unravels to come and attack you. If you can reach it immediately and attack it immediately, you can actually damage many segments quickly at once because it's all coiled up together. So piercing and area effect weapons in general can be very effective at hitting multiple segments, especially when it's coiled up. But in general, it will be, flying at you, and if you can shoot, the length of it or so on, or hit a bunch of pieces at once, obviously that is going to be useful. But again, in Expert, most explosives do far less damage to it, so that's one area effect weapon that will be less useful in Expert. Aiming becomes very important, therefore, for piercing weapons. In fact, if it's going sideways or vertically, but it's going to be easier sideways, if you can get it charging sideways at you and fire a piercing weapon at it, obviously you're going to hit all those segments as the weapon passes through. And similarly, placement is effective for area effect, or placement is important for area effect weapons. So if you are in normal and using explosives, where you throw those is going to matter for how much you hit. Obviously, similar idea. So let's talk about preparation. As far as armor, you can get away with, if you're good enough, you can get away with iron, lead, or even pumpkin armor. It's possible to do it with those. Personally, I would recommend at least silver or tungsten armor, and it's even better if you can get gold, platinum, even jungle armor or meteor armor, which is what I'm wearing. Those are obviously going to be better. And you can get meteor armor because once you've smashed one of the shadow orbs, if you don't rush through and smash all three at once, you can get a meteorite to land and go farm that, which is not easy, but it's an option. I like meteor armor. I'm a fan. So I'm going to use that. As far as weapons, in normal mode, obviously, again, grenades can work well. Won't work so well in Expert. Molotovs, regardless of Expert or normal, can work well. The damage that Molotovs do is reduced a little bit against the Eater of Worlds, but they can still work because you can throw those down, it'll lay some fire, and it comes up through the ground, right? So again, that's effectively kind of an area effect thing and gets it when it's coming out of the ground and so on. The sort of default easiest strategy to go with is to use a platinum or demon bow. So I'm going to show you that. I've got a platinum bow here. Demon bow is better because you can get demonite from the Eye of Cthulhu. So that's a very slight upgrade. If you are in a world with gold, I would do that upgrade to the demon bow. It's definitely a lot better. It's not, the difference between platinum and demon isn't as big. Anyway, you're going to want to pair either of those bows with Jester's arrows or Unholy arrows because those have piercing effects. So I've got a bunch of Jester's arrows, which I better put first in my order there, which I'm going to show you. One that I don't have, but is also a good option, the Vile Thorn, has a chance to drop from shadow orbs, and that also can pierce through walls and segments. It doesn't do as much damage, but because it sort of stays in place momentarily and you can aim it at a specific portion, you can basically kind of get the worm as it's passing through that Vile Thorn. Same sort of idea. It will also jab through walls, which is very useful against this particular boss because this particular boss spends a lot of time digging in the ground. So if you can stab into the wall with it and kind of leave that there just briefly, momentarily to damage multiple segments, that's why the Vile Thorn comes in handy as well. And if it's charging straight at you, you can aim it right at the head, and as it flies at you, you can do damage to multiple segments that way. Another option, which I am going to show you, is spiky balls, actually, because you can get a goblin army, again, after at least one of the shadow orbs is broken, if you don't rush into it. You can fight a goblin army, and goblin armies lead to getting a lot of spiky balls, and this is one place that those are actually useful. You can throw spiky balls on the ground, which I'm going to end up doing, and as the worm comes through the ground, it will hit the balls, and it's going to get itself hurt. So that's a good option. If you're lucky enough to get a water bolt from the dungeon entrance, because you're usually going to fight this before you go into the dungeon, but if you're lucky, a water bolt is very helpful, especially in confined spaces, because it'll bounce around, and again, that way it'll damage a bunch of stuff at once. And guns, because again, once you smash the first shadow orb, you will normally get a gun, a musket, and NPC, your arms dealer, will generally appear, and you can get better guns. So I picked up a mini shark from him, and it is well paired with meteor shot as well, because that does have a slight piercing effect. That's sort of recommended. But regular musket balls or silver bullets will also work. And I'm also going to show you the space gun, which of course pairs particularly well with the meteorite armor. It does a decent job. It's not super powerful, but it does have a lot of piercing effect. And that in itself, again, piercing, very useful against this boss. And last but not least, I'm also going to show you the harpoon, because again, if it's charging, particularly if it's charging sideways, or if you can aim it just right, if you aim the harpoon, which again you get from the goblin army, if you aim it right at its head as it's charging towards you, again, that can pierce, and in fact, supposedly you can fire this fast enough that as it charges you, you can basically hit back, and more or less possibly even kill it before it even reaches you. I don't know, that sounds tricky, but it's one of the recommendations. So as far as accessories and buffs, any accessories that improve damage, defense, or mobility are going to help, such as rocket boots or cloud in the bottle, or one of the other things in a bottle that allows you to double jump. You're going to want that mobility. If you are in expert mode, the Shield of Cthulhu, allowing you to dash, it's going to be helpful, because basically you're going to want to get out of its way when it's charging at you and try not to get hurt. So this is some of the stuff that I'm going to use. I've got Spectre boots and pink horseshoe balloon. So this is pretty advanced stuff. If you are on one of the updated platforms, a shark tooth necklace is always useful against bosses, especially pre-hard mode. And I got a banded regeneration to help me out, and Shield of Cthulhu. So those are just some examples. Anything that helps you move, helps your defense, helps your damage output, are all going to help against this one. If you do have the slime mount, that's going to be very useful, especially in expert, because the slime mount can bounce off of the worm itself and off of the segments and do a little damage there, and also help you avoid getting damaged, because you're going to bounce off of it instead of it hurting you. And also in expert mode, it's particularly useful because as you have that vile spit being fired at you, if you are above it, if you effectively bounce on the vile spit or it hits the bottom of your mount, it will destroy it, instead of, again, you being damaged and getting that nasty weak debuff. So that's very helpful. And potions and food and such, of course, the regular suspects, health, iron skin, regeneration are always good ones early on. Food for the well-fed buff, any kind, will work. And hunter potions can help you spot it as it digs through the ground. Obviously, if you are going with the archery strategy, the bow and arrows, then you can use the archery potion, which I do happen to have as well. Lots of other potions can be used if you need extra help. Check out my potions guide for some of the ones that you can craft. Most of them, actually, you can craft in pre-hard mode if you really need a little extra help, and those will give you a little boost. So as far as the arena, let's kill these guys, because these guys are annoying me, and you're getting bored of me just sitting in a box. So this is how I've prepared this. You don't have to do it this way, but basically, again, you're going to want to focus on mobility, and it is going to dig in the ground, so you may not want to be on ground level. So one of the easiest things to do is just an elevated platform or a series of elevated platforms. You can, put some extra levels on as well. You can also use some ropes to help you get up and down, especially if you are going to be fighting it after breaking the shadow orbs. I've gone ahead, and I'll show you my map here quickly. I've gone ahead and put ropes all the way down in there, so that I can escape quickly, because that's a big deal. If you're breaking the shadow orbs, you're going to want to get out of there once you finish breaking the last one, because it's going to spawn, and you're underground, and you're in a confined space, and it's going to come and get you. So grappling hooks and ropes and platforms are your basic ideas. It is a good idea generally to be above the ground, although in expert, with it spitting the vile spit, that's a little more debatable, because it will not obviously spit if it's inside the ground, but it will spit if it's above the ground. So there's that, but generally it's going to be coming out of the ground and going in and out of the ground, and you're going to want to hit it, and you want to hit it when it's out of the ground. So, platforms above the ground are helpful. Obviously, campfire, heart lantern, all that kind of stuff is going to help a little as well. And it's a good idea. It's a decent idea to have a little house with a bed in it, like I've done here, and set your spawn point to that. It has to be in the corruption biome, because if you're far enough away from the corruption biome, the Eater of Worlds will then again run away, despawn. So basically, if you die, you can respawn right here, and you're still within the biome, and you can, I think, keep fighting it. And so there's that. But also, it's not only because of that, it's also if you get trapped, because it is a giant worm, it's going to coil around and you can get surrounded. If you get trapped, you can use your magic mirror, recall potion, whatever, and just jump back to that spawn point to get out of being trapped inside where the worm's going to kill you. So those are all things to keep in mind as well. And yeah, all that sort of stuff. So I think I'm basically ready to fight it now, and I've already broken one shadow orb, and I've kind of prepared the others. So let's get down there and let's do this, and we'll see how it goes. So if need be, I can kind of flee back to that spawn point, which is, again, a good idea. And obviously I put lots of torches around there and everything. So there you go. That's the second one. Blew up that zombie that was bothering me as well. And if I move over here, yeah, I got the chill debuff because I'm an expert and I went in the water, and it happens to be a snowy corruption biome, and here I am jumping in the water again. But anyway, and of course after the fight I'm going to cover the actual drops from this boss. Okay, I want to get this worm out of here because I don't need anything else trying to get me. Okay, so here we go. This is probably going to do it right here. Yep, here it comes. And so this is why I made the ropes, and you can see giant worm down there coming to get me. Yeah, this is kind of what I was afraid that was going to happen. I wasn't sure, actually, if it would despawn if I just went and beamed right up. But I'm going to do that now, because I don't want to get killed yet. And I'm going to want my mount, as I was saying. Oops, and you can see... Yeah, it's basically a disaster, but you can see that vile spit I was talking about. It will fire directly at you, so you can actually dodge it pretty easily. There we go. But this is what I was talking about. You know, obviously, I'm not actually that good at playing. But being prepared, this should still save me. Worst case, I should spawn right back in that box. You can see how much this mount actually helps me. And here's where I was talking about firing through the worm, essentially. And yeah, you actually bounce right off the vile spit. Oh, and I'm good enough to heal now. You can see it actually charged at me, and I bounced right off its face. Right off its face, I said. Generally, you don't want to split it into multiple parts if you don't have to. But as I was explaining, despite my terrible, terrible start, firing through the worm makes a big difference. So let's try some of these other weapons. Yeah, if you do this right with the harpoon, I can see how this would potentially work. Although I gotta say that Jester's arrows and stuff are a lot easier. So yeah, especially in expert mode, this slime mount is going to make a big difference. As you can see, it basically saved me completely. Because that vile spit is otherwise going to hurt you real bad, as well as, you know, the worm charging at you. It's obviously going to hurt you really bad. And yeah, the slime mount totally saved me. And obviously guns should do okay. But personally, I've always liked just the bow and arrow. And there we are. Despite that terrible start to that fight, nonetheless, I was able to defeat the Eater of Worlds simply because of my preparation and having all the right equipment. So there you go. Now let's talk about the drops. I think I better go back in my house just so I don't have to be constantly fighting while I talk about the drops. So, what did we get? Now, it will always drop 50 to 100 shadow scales, 100 to 250 demonite ore, and 5 to 15 lesser healing potions. There's also a 1 in 7 chance for it to drop the Eater of Worlds mask, a 1 in 10 chance for it to drop the Eater of Worlds trophy, and a 1 in 20 chance for it to drop the Eater's bone, which gives you one of these guys as a pet, basically a baby eater. Pet item, that's the Eater's bone. So, if you're in expert mode, like I am, you'll also get the treasure bag, which the expert mode treasure bag item for the Eater of Worlds is the worm scarf, which is awesome. I'll talk about that in one sec, but also you will get basically roughly an extra 50 shadow scales. So normally you get 50 to 100. In expert, you get 100 to 150. So Worm Scarf is an amazingly useful, extremely useful accessory. It reduces the damage that you take by 17%, and that's after factoring in your defense. So here we go. I've got Demonite Ore, Shadow Scales. I got the Shadow Orb from smashing the other type of Shadow Orb, if you know what I'm saying. And there's the Healing Potions. Either I didn't get any of those bonus items, or it was because my inventory is full. There's also that. But here's the treasure bag, and if I right-click that, here we go, Angry Worm Scarf, and you can see I got some extra Shadow Scales and Demonite Ore in that treasure bag as well. And yeah, Angry Worm Scarf reduces damage taken by 17%, and that is after your defense. So that is actually an extremely useful accessory, especially for some melee setups and so on. But generally, in general, Angry Worm Scarf is going to help you a lot. It can be helpful throughout the game, and that is sort of the ultimate prize for fighting the Eater of Worlds. So, hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.